So getting into volume 16 and volume 15 for Overlord, I'm going to talk about these very closely together because they are meant to be bundled, well, they're meant to be one volume release, but the author split them due to just how large they are. So it's appropriate that I talk about both volumes because they're heavily intertwined together, and it helps get the context out there. And the other thing though too is, again, volume 18 will be the final volume, as much as I know some fans are hoping that the same situation is going to happen again where he overwrites something and he splits it. I don't think that's actually going to happen. I was hoping when it first happened, but after reading volume 15 and 16, I can definitely see that volume 17 and 18 is going to be probably short, sweet, and concise volumes. And the reason being is with how everything is kind of tied off, and it's the beginning of the end. And that is to do with Antilene, which is the daughter, the half-human, half-elf to the Elf King, how she gets defeated and the information extracted from her to do with Shao-Tyr, and how now Ainz knows what happened to Shao-Tyr, and now he's super, super, super angry, and he's basically ready to go into a full outright war. The one thing I thought was funny was how Albedo, when Ainz was like really angry, he kind of messaged her. He's like really frustrated. He's like, come here. And she thought he discovered the truth about the secret squad. And this is what I mean about the Light Officer. It's honestly, you can clearly see that the author had so many more plans for the Light Officers. There was so many other story hooks planned for the long term. Honestly, I feel like Overlord could have gone to 30 volumes, and that's where the author probably had planned. Maybe 30, give or take. I think even probably more than 30 he had planned. I know some people say 50, he had all this story for 50, but I don't think it would have gone that far. I think 30, maybe a bit longer than that, was where the author had plans to go. And he spoke in other comments about how he had some stuff planned for volume 22 and all that. So now to be condensed down to 18 volumes, 17 if you want to bundle 15 and 16 together as one volume, but either I don't really care. It's ending on volume 18. The amount of story that's been cut out, you can feel the story has been rushed. Volume 15, very much, it's a contradiction in itself. It's padded and it's rushed at the same time. Volume 14 is rushed, but it's a pretty enjoyable volume. Volume 15, honestly, giving my honest opinions, I struggled to get through it. It was just, honestly, it just felt like a bunch of fluff that had no point being there. And especially with how little is left of the story and how many other plot points are still left to conclude, that's what frustrates me. I don't mind fluff. If the series was going to be 30 plus volumes, then I'd be like, oh yeah, add as much fluff as you want. Have as much fun making side story volumes all you want, because we've got this long story still left. You can add in extra, fluff stuff all you want. But with him spending, honestly, 75% of volumes 15 and 16 put together, 75% of it just kind of fluff, it frustrates me a lot because there's so much still left to be concluded, and I know none of that's going to be concluded, and a lot of it has been done in very quick sentences, like the Draconic Kingdom, done in a sentence in volume 15. The red potion discovery from our alchemist boy, that's done in a passing remark in Ainz's monologuing head. Like, we don't get any major chapters added to show, hey, look, he discovered about the red potion, he's now gifted it to Ainz, and Ainz is super happy, and he gets a reward, and he gets another big lavish dinner or something fancy, like with the purple potion. Nope, none of that happens. It's just a passing remark in Ainz's head, monologuing, and that's the end of it. Okay, we knew about it, the end. And so that just feels really sad, especially when the author's spending half a volume going with the whole pharmacy stuff, which is funny, is this whole pharmacy thing with the Dark Elf village and with the Dark Elf himself, working with Ainz, passing some knowledge on, and that's when Ainz does a passing remark about the red potion, but we get no real chapter or information or context added about the whole red potion and the whole discovery there and the village and with the potion boy, as they call him. None of that gets delved into. It's just a passing remark, and the pharmacist is just kind of like the main focus for this volume. And that's just what frustrates me, because there's so much fluff in volume 15 and 16, but yet there's so little left of the story to go. Like, volume 18 is it, and so I feel like if you're going to add fluff, can you at least add stuff that concludes other major story arcs, stuff that we really want and need to know? That's, to me, what feels like is important. And I know that's going to trigger some Overlord fans, because I know that when you criticize Overlord light novel series, you get some really die-hard fans getting the pitchforks. And I had that with my volume 15 review, and I'm sure I'll get it with volume 16. Again, I'm a very big Overlord fan, but I have to be completely honest with my opinions. I honestly enjoyed probably about half of volume 16. If I'm being generous, I enjoyed about half of it. The other half, I struggled to get through. It was just tedious. It really was. The best way to put it was tedious. So to give context to some of the stuff that was going to happen, because honestly, I was going to make a longer video dissecting each part, but with how simplistic this volume is, there's not really too much to talk about. So continuing on from volume 15 into volume 16, Ainz is in the Dark Elf village. Well, he's now arrived at the Dark Elf village. The two twins are there. The young kids are trying to play with one of the twins. They're trying to sort of win the twin over, and Ainz is giving candy out, trying to persuade them, win their hearts, trying to sort of do his normal thing. And he did have this whole plan about selling some stuff to them, some goods and stuff that didn't really go anywhere. Then he kind of thought about selling the weapons and stuff because of the whole situation with the slain theocracy and the elf, but none of that went through. And then Ainz does this whole thing with the pharmacist. This is where it's just a lot of the stuff to do with the pharmacist. I'm gaining knowledge about it, back and forth, and then the slain theocracy's attack starts to build up, and the Elf King starts asking for additional troops from the Dark Elf villagers, and Ainz basically says, okay, we're leaving. Now, Ainz is disguised as a Dark Elf, and a lot of the women there wanted to get with Ainz, kind of join him, and because he doesn't want them to touch him, because if they touch him, they're going to realize he's cold, he's undead, and then they'll freak out, and he wanted to build their trust first before he showed his true form. He ends up just making a run for it. So he doesn't run because he's scared of any enemies. No, he makes a run for it because the women were going to start chasing him, wanting to be with him because he's strong and capable, etc. He makes a run for it. And when he finds out about the whole slain theocracy and the Dark Elf, the stuff going on, well, not necessarily the Dark Elves, but the Dark Elves needing to send troops, but kind of whole messy situation there, and then the Elf King and all that, he's like, oh yeah, we could get some, rare items, steal some stuff, and that's where he bumps into the Elf King. The Elf King does a bit of a monologue, and there's some really interesting conversation stuff there. Basically, once the Elf King arrives into the story, that's where the story gets much more interesting, because there's this bit of monologue where he talks about people's names. He starts referencing names, and he references the creators for the two twins, and so Ainz is just like, but then that just kind of passes over, like mentions it, and that's the end of it. And I was just like, oh, there was so much more that could have gone into that, but the conversation just kind of brushed over. Ainz ends up fighting the Elf King, and the Elf King makes a run for it and then gets killed by Antilene, which is the half-human, half-elf daughter from the slain theocracy. She kills him, and then she gets into a fight with Mare. Mare ends up defeating her, and she gets dragged back to Nazarick, and information gets dissected out of her about what happened to Shalltear. Ainz finds out about Shalltear, what happened to Shalltear during volume 3, and he gets furious, and it's like, that's it, we're going to war. We're going to wipe them out. And so you can clearly see how volume 17 and 18 is going to go. It's going to be clear, cut and dry, outright war. Ainz is going to wipe them out. So it's pretty straightforward. Overall, the fight stuff is really cool. That stuff's really cool. It's just the first half, honestly, is just, to me, tedious. It's just tedious. I enjoyed the second half. I didn't enjoy the first half. Volume 15, some of it was pretty cool, but some of it was just fluff, and I don't mind fluff, but the problem with fluff in this point of the story is that because there is only 2 volumes left now, there really isn't any room for fluff to be added. Like, if you're going to add fluff at least add stuff that allows us to get conclusions to story arcs and characters that need conclusions, rather than just writing one sentence and writing them off, because to me that's just lazy. And so that's why my statement is very contradictory, in that it's rushed and padded at the same time, because he's padded parts of it out and then rushed other parts, and I just don't think the padding was needed, especially when you've got so many other stuff unconcluded. And I did a video on my main channel talking about the chances of a season 5 and saying that season 5 will be the final season, because it will cover these 4 volumes, volume 15, 16, 17, 18, which it goes against the norm of each season covering 3 volumes. But with how easy it is to skip stuff in volume 15 and 16, it will be 4 volumes into one season, and it will be the final season. And I saw a lot of fans were kind of like, oh wow, really? And they were kind of really shocked about that. But it's just, with how everything's been rushed, a lot of fans I think are going to feel very unsatisfied with the ending of the anime and the light novels, because I've seen so many fans saying, how can there be only one more season when there's so much still left to be concluded? There's all these subplots and everything, and it's like, that's the problem. That is the problem. There is all this stuff yet to be finished, but it's all just going to be kind of open ending or resolved off screen, which just disappoints me. And I know this is going to be a fun video to upload and see the comments of, but I just have to be honest with my opinion. This is my honest opinion, and maybe my opinion might change as I think about it more and dissect it more, but this is just my raw opinion. I'd love to know people's comments down in the comment section down below, what your thoughts are about volume 16. Most comments I got about volume 15 were in agreement. I had a couple of really outraged comments, because if you dare ever criticize Overlord light novels, you generally get some of the real zealot hardcore fans, which they're the fun ones to read. Very fun to read. But hopefully volume 17 and 18 has enough context and grit in it to kind of make it satisfying. I'm hoping there's some really cool fight scenes. I definitely will make a theory video on how I think that will all turn out. So again, love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. But if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more anime content, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.